Hello, everybody. It's Adrian Plass here yet again.
Yes, and Bridget, whenever you say yet again, I think it makes us sound really,
What?
yet
Annoying,
again.
repetitive,
Annoying,
boring.
interfering with your lives.
No, it's number 68. And some of you are probably nodding and saying, yeah, you summed it up really well. No, it's 68 in Sounding the Shadows.
Well, we were talking last week, just briefly, weren't we, about temptation, and we were talking about the big temptations and Jesus in the desert, but we also mentioned somebody who was struggling with how many ice creams she ate in a day.
I'm quite serious about
Oh, no,
it,
I'm not
actually,
joking.
isn't
It was a big thing.
Yeah.
They always are the things we
Yeah.
really want. And we did hear from someone who said theirs was cheese and onion crisps.
Well, I think quite a large proportion of the listenership, if there is one, would probably quite like to have their sins to boil down to cheese and onion crisps. I must say, as you get older, your sins become more tedious, perhaps. I mean, I talk about original sin. I haven't had an original sin for years. And some of them are just absurd. They just carry on forever. I remember going around collecting money for some religious thing, and some grumpy man at the door saying, religion is not my forte. And whereas I should have picked it up with him and talked about faith, what I wanted to do more than anything was to correct his use of the word forte, which really annoyed me, which is very trivial. But those things which have lasted all my life are still there. They survive the removal of really quite serious temptations.
I think that might be a little more dignified than mine. Every time I get near to a Greggs, I yearn for one of those very bad for you sausage rolls. So mine doesn't really quite equate with yours, but it is those things.
We do sound as though we lead very exciting lives, don't we?
Well, it's interesting, really. I mean, we were thinking, weren't we, this week about, the words, I have a plan for your life, that, with loads of people pick up on. And I was thinking this week, I had a plan for a day. It was a good plan. We've had a visitor this week, haven't we? Oh, my goodness, to have a visitor is an amazing thing. But I had a plan for the day.
Yeah.
So first of all, we go to a very nice town near us, and we go down to my favourite area, and there must have been something on because there was literally nowhere to park the car. So then we went up into the centre of the town where there was literally nowhere to park the car.
Yeah.
So then we came home, and then later on we went to a garden, beautiful garden, which we love going to. And it was shutting.
Yeah, we
just
had
as
5
we
minutes. They allowed us 5 minutes, didn't they?
But we were not defeated,
whisk
were
round
we?
it.
We
No.
thought we'll go to
No.
the local, just the hotel just down the road, which has got a beautiful veranda looking out over a lake. Maybe we'll have a drink there. But it isn't a hotel anymore. And we really did come back feeling this idea of having a plan for a day was hard enough.
Yeah, well, in the old, not in the old days. I know now as well in the Christian church or parts of the Christian church, people talk quite confidently about God having a plan for your life. And I'm not dissing that. I'm not saying just God doesn't have a plan for your life, but that nothing in this strangely shaped faith of ours is quite as simple as it sounds. I'm very attracted to Mike Tyson, that famous
I hope we're not really attracted to Mike Tyson.
famous evangelical boxer. No, I'm not attracted to Mike Tyson physically. That is not one of my temptations.
I was going to say.
But he memorably said, a plan works well until someone punches you in the mouth, which I think is one of the most wonderful definitions of failed planning that I can imagine. And there are times when you think you know, or you hope you know, or you become excited by the possibility that you know that something is planned and is going to happen. And then life punches you in the mouth. And you think, well, that's not very fair, is it? It's just gone. In fact, I mean, early in my speaking life and writing life, we did that, didn't we? I mean, we said we wanted God to do something in our lives, and we hoped there'd be some great plan after our generous offer.
Yes,
But,
I mean, I do remember one time, Adrian, and this was way back. I hadn't been a Christian very long because it was after I've met you, and you needed to train, didn't you? Because at that time, the only way to go forward in residential social work was to get a teaching qualification. But we wanted to be open to the Spirit. But we also were very aware that your mum, who'd had a stroke, really needed us to be nearby. So
yeah.
that was there, but that didn't seem very spiritual, if you remember. So we got a map and some pins, and we closed our eyes and we put the pins into the map, and it was genuine. It
Did
was
we really do
genuine, wanting
Oh,
us
I
to be
believe it.
open to the Spirit.
Yeah.
And we looked at the places, and one
Yeah.
was way up in the north of England. I think one was in Wales. It wasn't funny for us at the time at all.
No, it
And
wasn't. I
and you
remember it now.
applied to those places, and then the
Yeah.
only reply that you got was from a college in Bromley that you hadn't applied to, which was 10 miles away from your mum. Now, I don't know, it's easy to over spiritualise things, but I did kind of feel that God knew best, I suppose, that, you know, your mum needed you.
I
And
suppose
sometimes
so. Yeah.
we might have gone that route much more simply by saying, what
Yeah.
makes sense? What is the thing that really matters? And it was your mum.
I think that's true. As long as one doesn't make rules about that, you're absolutely
Well, it
right.
made us laugh.
Yeah, it did, and we were. I think I'm looking back. I'm more pleased that we were childlike in our attitude to it
Yeah.
than that we had special abilities or plans about being with God. But we wanted to do something, didn't we?
Yeah.
We wanted something to happen. We wanted to have stuff come into our lives, and at that time, around then, there was a lot of stuff about guidance, actually. And you may remember one person who was kind of, I don't know whether he was famous or infamous for having a word from God. And he came to see me, and in that particularly solemn voice that people use that produces temptation to strangle in me at times, he said, he said, I think the Lord has given me a word for you. So I looked at him, and what were my feelings? I wasn't very nice about it, I suppose. But anyway, I said, thank you very much. I said, that's great that you've come and told me that, but if you don't mind, can you go home and just pray about it again and see if you think that you really got something to say to me. And he didn't actually ever come back. But I think at that time, and possibly still, I don't know, the feeling that God is spraying information left, right, and centre in that way it's worrying. Firstly, because I'm sure He is offering information about things and things that need to be said, but also that He isn't, and it's distinguishing between the one and the other that can be very difficult.
Yeah, that's when wisdom comes in, I suppose, and none of us are all that wise. And when we're young, we so want things to happen, don't we? We want adventures, but also sometimes it's a very genuine thing that we desperately want to help somebody. And I remember a young couple who had one very, very disabled child and then another, and they, you know, and loads of people, and it did feel very cruel, but people were praying right, left and centre, and it meant people were coming at 1 a.m. and knocking on their door and saying, I think God is telling me that he's going to be healed, she's going to be healed. Both children were very ill. Actually, the interesting thing is that, I mean, while one of them lost their faith completely, the other one grew and grew in strength. And we would never know whether one of those words, you know, it's so difficult, Adrian. I still wrestle with it. I feel I've been wrestling with it for the however many years I've been a Christian.
I think a lot of
really.
people have, and I mean, I know who you're speaking about, and I know that the motivation for that was genuinely hoping that they're right. You're awake at 1 a.m, a feeling floods you, compassion and worry, and you suddenly, it seems as though something very optimistic is happening in you, and off you go and you say something that turns out to simply not be true.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you saying that thing very early on and saying, just go home and think about it. And if it still feels right, come and tell me. Maybe if some of those people had gone home and thought about it and not woken up this young couple, then maybe God would have made something really clear for them. I don't know. I don't want ever to stop thinking that God has got things to say for us. I just think we need to be a bit wary.
No, I think what we've got to be... I'll tell you what I have thought lately, seriously, is that what we lose in the evangelical church in particular is the understanding, perhaps, that if nothing has happened, then nothing has happened. What I mean by that is that if God hasn't done something or said something, then there isn't anything to say. And when you grasp that, I think it becomes more frustrating because you wish more would happen, and less frustrating because you're not dealing with half-truths and bits of truth and stuff that you can't quite handle. And one of our heroes in all that is Paul, isn't it? About guidance. I mean, St. Paul.
Well, I mean, he followed common sense, didn't he? You know, that gift that we despise so often, really, from God, common sense. The best thing to do is to go to the country that's next in line, the country that you've heard from, or wherever it is. You know, that makes sense. But being open to the possibility that it's not the right thing next.
Yeah, he's praying continually. He's on his way to Bithynia. It's a good decision to make, and he has a dream, and it says, "Don't do that." Yeah. And I suppose my inspiration from that has always been to pray to be stopped. That you keep on praying, you keep on talking to God, you keep on hoping you'll see clearly. And I've noticed that the word "feel" has crept into conversations about guidance very solidly in this age.
Tell me what you mean a bit
more.
Well,
people used to say "God said to me," and then it kind of weakened a bit. Got to I have a sort of a sense that God is possibly saying it, and now it's become I felt God saying, and it removes us a step. I mean, Paul had a dream. People were guided in the New Testament in specific, clear ways, and I don't know whether we've stopped believing that is...
Do you know what? I think it's something to do with turning it over. Instead of saying, what is God's plan for my life? It's saying, what is God's plan that I need to be listening to join into? I mean, you know, that thing that somebody said to us years ago, find out what God's doing and join in.
Yeah.
So God's plan was for Paul to go to Philippi.
Yeah.
And Paul had to listen and join into God's plan. It wasn't necessarily comfortable or wonderful for Paul. And sometimes I think we think of God's plan for our lives as being something that will be beneficial for us, rather than necessarily being a cog in a massive... What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. I think we have often wished we were large cogs in the machine.
Or cogs that actually turn.
This metaphor could become a little onerous after a while. But, but to find that you are, to go back to John Wimber's statement, which we've mirrored before, you know, I'm small change in his pocket. Actually being small change is not the most exciting thing in the world sometimes.
No.
Sometimes it is. And things do happen. One of the things that is very constraining in with talking on situations like this is that there are one or two things that have happened where something has been very, very clear. But a lot of times, I personally, anyway, I don't know about you, I've simply hung back, sat back, and waited to see if I'm right about something. I thought, you don't want to major on the things that have seemed very clear. I don't know why that is, because perhaps it would be helpful. I don't know.
Whatever, you know, the thing. I mean, you have been doing it for years. We both stand up and talk to people, and you know, that the whole thing of one person, maybe, you know, we were talking about cogs and it's only just come into my mind, but do you remember how much it meant to us when somebody wrote to us and said that they felt as though the cogs in the wheels of their faith, which had been stuck, had just begun to turn again, and we never knew what happened. We never knew whether they kept turning and whether it all became shiny. But that's the small change thing, isn't it? That maybe one thing we say to somebody today in the cafe or in the bus or in the queue or in the, but that might just be a tiny little bit of oil.
I'm sure that's true. And but because I knew we were going to be talking about this, I was looking back and trying to remember the times when we really needed to know something. I suppose the time when we were going to come up to the north and work at Scargill was one of those when there were no blinding flashes of light or anything, but there was certainly within me something approaching, something oddly like knowledge that's where we would end up, that's where we would be.
Yeah, but if you remember, Adrian, we cleared the decks. I mean, in order for something to happen, now we can't always physically do that, but that was true, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did. We emptied a year, didn't we?
We felt that maybe it was time for a change. You'd been writing and speaking for years, and we'd been working together for years, and we thought there was time for a change. So if you remember, we emptied a year. The next year we said, well, we can't take on any engagements because we have a feeling. So in a way it was a feeling that started it. But maybe sometimes, I mean, we can't always clear a year or even a month, but maybe sometimes we have to clear a space so
I think
God can get a word in
it.
It
Certainly doesn't have to be a year, but
no.
and to be truly open about it, because you never know. I mean, I would just like to say to people, I know God sometimes tells people what's happening next and what the plan is. I know that happens. I also know He doesn't, and there are long desert-like spaces for people who we hear from, who have been waiting for a long time to know what this plan for their life is. Anyway, perhaps we should finish by just lifting the atmosphere a little bit.
Yeah, we have got a little. Well, except that it's reminded me, and I hope it's reminded other people of a time or sometimes or little times when something real has happened.
This is based on the fact that we only have about 2 metaphors for guidance in the church world, really, and this one, I'm sure, has probably passed its sell-by date. So this is an interview. I was speaking to Mr. Williams.
Now, Mr. Williams, you and your wife, you have recent experience of seeking guidance, haven't you? So I wonder if you'd like to tell us about it.
Yeah, well, what happened was we tried one door that we thought the Lord was opening for us, but when, as it were, we pushed it, we found that it was shut.
Oh.
So we tried another door, and this time it did open, so we passed through, and on the other side there was another door. But this one was shut like the first door. And when we turned around and tried to go back through the previous door, that is the second door, we discovered that it had shut behind us. So we were, in fact, as it were, trapped between the 2 doors. So we had to climb out, as it were, through the skylight, and we came down through another skylight. Are you listening to this?
Oh, yes.
And found ourselves in front of a 4th door.
Oh, a 4th door.
Yeah, and this door was slightly ajar, so I pushed it, but it was on a very strong spring, and it swung back and hit me quite hard in the face.
Oh, my goodness.
So I did rebuke that door, actually, and all the other doors, actually, at that stage. And we did wonder whether doorways might create openings through which something demonic can come.
Oh,
so,
Mr. Williams.
Yeah. So we decided at that point to seek the Lord's will by laying a fleece.
Oh, well, that was a wonderful idea.
No,
Mr.
yeah, it was, but the Lord shut that door.
Oh, Mr. Williams, what exactly were you and your wife seeking guidance about?
It was whether to buy an open plan house or not. I don't know. I don't know.
But we'd
Anyway.
love to hear other
tell us
people's
about your
experience, the good
guidance.
and the
Yeah.
bad, really, and when things have felt clear and how that happened.
And don't give up, and
No.
keep praying, and keep asking to be stopped. And if there's any flashes of inspiration God wants to give you, then that's fantastic. But let's let it all be absolutely true.
Yeah.
So there we are. We'll see you next time.
See you next
Bye-bye.
time. Bye-bye.